Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name's Alec McCutcheon. I'm a Director of Unicom Seminars, and we're very pleased to be hosting the presentation today, which is entitled The Importance of Holistic Approach to Big Data and How to Do It Step by Step. And we're particularly delighted to welcome our presenter, who is Bill Harvey. Bill's a co-founder and strategic advisor of TiVo Research. Bill's background is that he began as a media research analyst at Gray Advertising in New York and was then manager of the Applied Sciences division at Interpublic. Bill's early career was focused on building media optimizers. He joined Arbitron, where he invented new report formats for all TV and radio reports, which then became industry standards which are used to this day. His company, Next Century Media, was also the first to collect TV set-top box data to research grade and introduced addressable commercials and a data-driven program recommender for viewers. In fact, his company, TRA, which is now TiVo Research, holds no less than four issued US patents in which Bill Harvey is first named inventor. So very impressive background then. And Bill, I'd like to now hand over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be talking today about the marketing applications of big data. And it's possible that many of you on the call are already using big data in the digital field. And what we're going to be talking about today is how you take digital big data and combine it with offline big data in order to improve marketing results. Over the years, advanced analytics have been used, for almost 100 years in terms of time and motion studies and assembly line analytics techniques to maximize the supply side of the business. But the demand side of the business remains much more of an art than a science until, I guess, a few years ago when we kicked off the matching at scale, millions of homes worth of point-of-sale scanner data with TV set-top box data and digital data at TRA. And a number of companies have followed us into that holistic big data, also known sometimes as big data single source, because when done properly, you're looking at the same household being measured longitudinally over time, for which you've got stimuli data from various marketing stimuli designed to change purchase behavior, and then you've got the purchase results. And you can look at how those things come together and draw interesting new decisions from it. For example, here are a bunch of companies that have stood up with TRA at the Advertising Research Foundation and other industry conferences and stated that based on their own analysis, their sales went up double digits as a result of using these techniques of at-scale direct matching of online and offline data. The two main tricks out of the 9 different levers you can pull to make your ROI go up on marketing, the two that represent most of these case studies you're looking at here are looking at how the creative isn't always equally effective. Some creative executions are producing sales, and others, even ones that might have seemed most memorable or likable in pre-testing, you find aren't producing sales. So you could take them out of the rotation, not use them anymore. That automatically makes the ROI go up. And then you find the types of purchasers where you're getting the biggest bang for your buck from your current creative and media. And you can see which other media you can be using to reach those sales responsive people. Those are the two tricks that cause these double-digit increases in sales for the same media budget. So going back to basics and positioning this new method in context with methods that have been around for a long time. Marketing mix, you could say Unilever did the first marketing mix in I think it was the 1930s. I first came across it at Interpublic It was a study that had been done in 1958 for Pepsi. I saw it many years later. Marketing mix modeling is a form of inference using typically multiple regression analysis. And so this little illustration actually is a hieroglyphic. It tells a story. You can see the turquoise line is sales. And here we've assumed only two types of stimulus. One of them in the yellow ochre gold color, because it varies so much the same way that sales varies, will be attributed by marketing mix to have a big sales effect. Then stimulus B, which you see is flat across these different observations, which are typically markets. When you have a stimulus type that is flat, it won't be given a very big coefficient or moment of force by the marketing mix approach. But then if you look at A/B testing, if you take two matched geographic areas, and in area A you just test stimulus A, the one that marketing mix said had all the power, and in area B you use both stimuli, you might see that area B gets a higher sales response because stimulus B really is effective. It just isn't possible to tell that it's effective because marketing mix doesn't work that way. So big data matching, the technique that TiVo got its patents for, is a way of, with full privacy protection, connecting any number of databases, data for the same household, and doing this for many, many households, millions of households, tens of millions of households, and then using techniques very similar to marketing mix, except you're looking at the individual agent level, not at an aggregate up to the market level where there's less signal and more noise. So all of these are good techniques. Marketers should be using all of them, and we're going to today focus on how to use the one on the right, with not just digital data where you may already be doing that. So Dave Morgan, the CEO and founder of Simulmedia, created a great buzzword phrase when he coined big data a few years ago. In my patents, I had been calling it naturally occurring data to distinguish it from data that researchers collect specifically for the purpose of research. Now, researchers collect data, often it's self-reported data, and it has response biases in it. Naturally occurring data is passively collected by electronic means, so it doesn't have the same kind of response errors, fatigue, prestige, etc. The other thing about naturally occurring data is it doesn't have much non-response bias. When you're basing insights on people who cooperate with research studies, you're not getting everybody. You're getting a certain psychological type, and it may not be representative of what you get when you get everybody. And although frequent shopper cards and set-top box privacy agreements every year or every 6 months, depending on the country and the company, consumers are given an opportunity to opt out and not have their data aggregated. But it's running at less than 1%. So there's effectively no non-response bias. There's no response bias, and you're up in the tens of millions of households. There's very little sampling error. So those are its virtues. But it can go wrong if you don't follow the holistic approach or if you use fusionistic methods. So I'll be talking more about those problems as we go forward so that you folks don't have to fall into any of those traps. So here we're looking at the big data that you probably have in your company and which you may already have integrated together into a single file. Many companies have been working on that project over a period of years. I know one company that spent over $1 billion to put together its various databases. It's an amazing number. It normally doesn't cost anything like that. It could be done for under $20,000. It's all in a matter of scale and the form in which your data currently reside. So if you have a CRM database and you're a B2C company, You probably have in-store purchases, online purchases, phone and mail purchases, all on the same household, all in one record. Things like SAP and companies like that have methods of compiling that kind of information for you. You probably have a cookie pool, website visits, direct mail and email records by who it was sent to by email address or postal address, call centers with phone numbers, social medias with hashtags. And it's possible you could have hooked all these together because they can be hooked together. And companies like Experian, Axiom, Merkle, and many other companies are expert at doing that, as well as, of course, TRA and others. Not only do you have big data, but you undoubtedly have many of these big questions that practically every marketer asks themselves. Am I spending the right amount overall and in each medium? Am I targeting the right people? Am I using the right message? Am I in the modern age? Have I transcended the gap between the kinds of stories we used to message people with, which kind of wore a mask? People are now looking for authenticity, for trust. They really want to meet advertisers and brands as human beings, talk to each other, and engage emotionally. So are you doing that? What's your optimal frequency per week of putting an impression, contact, exposure to your messaging, whether it's paid media, bought, owned media, earned media? What's your optimal frequency per week? Which of your creative executions aren't you running often enough because they're so powerful, and which ones are you running too much because they're not powerful at a sales-producing level? Within a medium like TV or digital video or social, are you selecting the right specific media? At a granular level, are you putting the ads in the right shows? And on TV, are you putting the ads on the right apps or web pages in digital? Are you using the ability that TV now offers to integrate in the program to get the brand to appear, so to speak, as a character in the show itself? Are you using that in the most optimal way? Because it could be powerful. It could also be very costly, so it has to be used in the right way to optimize it. Custom content that you're creating for the web or even for TV, fully sponsored, true sponsored editorial content. Are you using social media in the best way, and are you using mobile in the best way? Big data can answer all of these questions. You'll see some examples later on. So all of the data that I showed on a couple of slides back, the call center data, the CRM database, the cookie pool, all of that now shrinks in this slide into the green database at the top of the slide, your data. It's got all of that in it. It's all integrated. So it's all at the same household level. Now what we can bring to that with the TRA, for example, is TV set-top box data that we can hook on at the same household level. That doesn't mean we can reveal to you what they view on TV. What we have to actually do in order to respect consumer privacy is to mix all these data in a way that doesn't reveal any information that the consumer hasn't given permission. We'll show how that can be done. We also have in-store records in 58 million stores in the U.S. Showing not only where the purchase was made and what the price was, but also what the display situation was. Was there special display, normal display, how much shelf space, how much out of stock, whether in-store circulars or a table of samplers or other forms of in-store. There are like 90 now different types of things you can do in-store electronically or in old-fashioned ways to promote in-store. And our partners are from whom TRA buys licenses this data at a very granular household level. You can see how much effect this has. And all of these stores are audited every week. This is very unusual, at least in the U.S. Most stores get audited like 2% a week by others. So the 100% in-store auditing is an unusual feature that TRA offers. Demographics, which TRA uses Experian demographics at the household level. Competitive data from Kantar on what TV, where your competitors place their TV spots. So you can actually find targets and send messages to households that either were reached by your competitors' messages or were not reached by your competitors' messages. And the latest thing that we've added is GPS tracking, which through a partner called Ninth Decimal, they're doing, and we're matching on to all of our other data at scale. So, you may have seen other people who are using mobile devices to track people with their permission using GPS. And most of them are limited to large football field type areas of 100 meters by 100 meters. The reason we like Ninth Decimal is it gets down to a tile of 4 feet by 4 feet, kind of the military surveillance level, which commercially is not generally available. And it means you can actually place somebody at the makeup counter or the jewelry counter as opposed to someplace in a mall and you're not even sure which store they're in. So in this short webinar, we're trying to provide a course here of what to do, what not to do in order to use all these data and get the best results. So first I mentioned matching by the Safehaven way. If you do things wrong here, the danger is you lose the trust of consumers. That would be such an awful thing to have happen that it would be better not to even do big data if that's what you're going to risk. So you have to do it the right way. The way TRA recommends is you use a third-party matcher that the world tends to trust to protect consumer privacy, like one of the credit bureaus. There's only 3 of them in the U.S. One of them is Experian. We use Experian for that reason. Axiom we also use because it's highly trusted. And what we seek to do is we have these multiple sources from which we're buying household level data. And we have each data source send the actual name and address next to the anonymized ID number. And the anonymized ID number is what the source, whether it's a set-top box source or a purchase source, sends to TRA. So we don't see the name and address. We just see the anonymized persistent ID number. But we ask that the client or the source send the data to us matched against the anonymized ID number. Send no data to Experian, just send the anonymized ID and the actual name and address. And so if Experian gets that from numerous databases, they haven't been made any wiser because they know every address in the country. They supply movers to the Postal Service, U.S. Postal Service. So they're very clued into every address in America. So giving them an address file with new ID numbers is not giving them any information they didn't have already. So we then, TRA, gets the data, and then Experian or Axiom gives us the key that says, okay, your ID number that you got from source 1, which is 16249NPQL246, etc., is the same household as the household you got from source N with the anonymized ID number 447DX, etc., etc. So we can match households together across different databases without being any the wiser about who the people are. Everyone's protected, and you're able to provide marketers with insight about what to change to make more money without spending more money, or indeed spending less money. So that's the first important guideline. Second thing is have all the stimuli that matter. So here's a little anecdotal case. On February 11th, 2015, not so very long ago, there was an Advertising Research Foundation meeting of industry leaders, handpicked by the ARF, about 50 people, folks considered leaders in the field. One of them got up and gave a presentation that was one of the largest studies anyone had ever seen, involving 70 million households, all kinds of data matching. Except it turned out it was all digital data matching. It had online purchases, it had online stimuli, mobile, social, in wonderful detail. And it came out with what looked like fascinating and very applicable results that would help the marketer make better decisions. But they checked it against marketing mix modeling, and they found that the ROI attributed to digital advertising by this huge analysis was 15 times overstating the ROI that marketing mix had found to be the case for digital media. And so they scratched their heads and said, you know, we don't know why this didn't work, but, you know, we have a lot to learn. And the room was silent. And I spoke up and I said, well, you know, what you did was you left out some very important stimuli like television and like in-store. As you'll see later in this webinar, you'll see some cases where in-store is enormously powerful, and TV in many cases is much stronger than other media, including digital, in many, many cases. So if you leave them out, the model will tend to attribute their effects to whatever stimuli you have included, which isn't just necessarily a flat overstatement. It's going to co-vary with types of people, so that certain types of people are going to be more overstated than other, and you could easily wind up picking the wrong target or picking wrong digital media based on such an analysis. So highly recommended that you take the holistic approach where you don't leave anything out. These are the stimuli that, for example, TRA is able to include at scale. And you know, make sure that when you do this, whoever your supplier is, that you don't skip over any of this. You should be able to get it all into the analysis. And you should be able to do it with direct match, the kind I described just now with the Experian example. Everything direct match, no fusion or inferential indirect matching, no ascription, no modeled, which is my next. The problem is when you use any form of indirect linkage, data smoothing, conforming, trying to get data from your big data sample to agree with benchmark data that you may have from some syndicated service or small sample panel service that you use for currency or whatever. It all seems like a sensible thing to do, but what you do is you flatten and distort the relationships in the real data. And so here's an example of that. So here are 26 shows, television shows, looking at the density of concentration in those programs' audiences of purchasers of a particular type that are driving the ROI of a particular client of ours. And you can see the blue line, which is the real data, not stepped on or fused or ascribed in any way, shows that the one program, program A, that has the highest index, that's the most cost efficient in reaching the purchasers that are driving the most sales, that show is 2.5 times as good as the average show in reaching those purchasers. But the fusion data flattens that out, because in fusion you're usually using demographic, geographic, and other predictors who on an R-squared basis account for only 10 to 20% of the variance in the behavior you're trying to predict, purchase in this case, or the overlap between purchase and TV viewing of a specific program. So it's best to avoid fusion. Just use hard data, direct match. And then what sample size do you need to make these kinds of decisions? Well, the more variables that you're looking at, the more sample you need. So if you look at that picture in the upper left-hand corner, Each cube there is a household. Could also be a person, depending on the sample you're using. But typically, rolling data up to the household level is what you wind up doing in most cases when you're doing matches to purchase for both online and offline media. Usually, you can get persons level data for some online media, and for some purchase, like prescription drugs, which TRA covers. But mostly product category data is available in stores at a household level. So you wind up going to the smallest size for which you have all data, which is households. So you have a grid, a three-dimensional, or really it's more than 3 dimensions, because you have characteristics of the household in terms of demographics. You have characteristics of the household in terms of purchase characteristics. You have what kinds of stores they visit and when. You have what media they're exposed to, and you have, TV, digital display, digital video, search, in-store media, outdoor media, mobile, social, and within mobile and social you have, Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and so on. So you have a lot of different permutations. If you're going to want to look at these individual permutations and get information about, Twitter specifically, and about combinations of these different media with the different creative you're using, the exclusive exposure groups that you're getting are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you want to analyze that stuff out, the number of variables drives you to start with a sample preferably in the millions, at least in the hundreds of thousands. And below hundreds of thousands, you're not going to get the full benefit of being able to analyze and optimize in such a granular way. You'll have to be doing a sub-optimization at a more crude, less granular level. And then how do you show management the results in order that you get fast decisions, right decisions, and you get some early wins where within a short period of time you're able to show sales increases with no significant increase in, with no increase in media spend, and with a very, very small relative investment in research, matching and analytics, where you might spend $50,000 or $150,000 in this kind of analytics and get millions and millions of incremental dollars. So the path to purchase way of looking at it is one powerful way that helps non-researchers and non-data scientists look at information and get it. So you could start with showing a specific household that bought a $35,000 car, and you can show, okay, first they were hit with a direct mail piece. We know the day they were hit. We know which piece it was. We know which TV commercial they got 7 days later, and so on through the whole process here. And then you can show this in a kind of a persona roll-up where you cluster or factor people who received stimuli in a similar sequence, and you can look at their average sales response. You've introduced some noise, reduced some signal, but now you're getting into a manageable, actionable level where you can take action against a group of people, a target group. You know how to reach them in the media and so on and so forth, and actually activate a changed campaign that increases your sales result. Typical timetable for getting this kind of stuff done, I'd say this is the current best practice typical timetable. It's also possible for everything to go much slower than this, particularly doing it the first time if there are many approval cycles, many different silos involved in trying to cooperate, people who are feeling that they don't want to share information because they're not sure whether they're going to be made to look bad by this, and so on. Until you get full buy-in and everyone working together as one team, it's not likely you'll be able to move this fast. But if you've got that problem solved, you can do this kind of preparation in 1 to 4 weeks. If, for example, you're already using LiveRamp, you're much closer to being able to get a 1-week data match with TRA, for example, and other big companies. If you're not using LiveRamp, but you are using either Experian or Axiom or both, you're still down in the 1 to 4 week period, which if you're not yet working with one of those companies, it could take considerably longer. Then typically what a brand does is it looks at what happened in the last year or two, or in some recent period. Before trying to change things, let's look at the case as it exists now in the real world. And you can usually look at that within 1 to 30 days. Often with TRA, depending on what you want to look at, like how well you're reaching purchasers, you can do that in a matter of minutes using the online system once you have the data match. And then making changes in the marketplace, buying different TV shows, buying different websites to advertise on, buying different cookie pools, and so on. And you know, this kind of depends on the purchase cycle of the product you're selling. If you're selling beer or soft drinks, you're going to start to see results in a matter of days that will be stabilizing within a period of a couple of weeks. You can start to make changes in weeks. And it's easier to make changes in digital than in TV, but TV is moving in the right direction, and soon we'll be catching up in programmatic activation. But typically within 6 months, you are able to show that the corporation has gotten millions more dollars to the bottom line, and this can start to affect the CEO's psychological state of mind around quarterly earnings calls, and your star is rising within the corporation. And then ideally what happens is you continue re-optimization and improvement in a closed-loop fashion indefinitely. And you're always making things better. And eventually you're learning a lot more about the creative and about the things like touching people's hearts and getting into more subtleties and continuously getting more sales effect per dollar spent and making a tremendous return on the cost of doing the analysis. You know, 10 to 1 or much more return on the research cost or analytics data cost. So here now in the last few slides are other ways, these are real data, other ways of analyzing the data, and you can see from it what kinds of learning you get. So looking over on the extreme left here, there's a food brand, a real food brand, who when they used to go to buy media, TV and digital, was trying to reach women 18 to 44. That was their buying target. They found out in the first TRA study they did that they would have been better off not targeting at all, just randomly sending messages out, spray and pray. They would have gotten 3% more sales effect that way than they did by constraining to reach women 18 to 44, because that actually lowered the sales effect by 3%. That doesn't always happen. But very often, as you can see from these examples, which are not hand-chosen at all, just the first bunch of cases that we analyzed this way, that sex-age targets are very blunt instruments. They're almost like not targeting. And as soon as you move to purchaser targets, big improvements are seen. And then the question is, which purchaser target? Like here's a case, this is one particular brand, where if you were to target purchasers of the category, all purchasers of the category, that would do a terrific job right there. Compared to all households, all purchasers of the category are buying this brand right now relative to when the analysis was done at almost 3 times the rate in response to the advertising. They're responding to the advertising with their wallets almost 3 times as well as the average household reached. So that's a result almost anybody would be happy with. HSP is a a TRA term of art, heavy swing purchasers. It turns out that we found across many packaged goods categories that a heavy category purchaser who has previously experienced the brand you're advertising, means they bought it once or many times, but they're not a loyal buyer of your brand, but they buy it sometimes, or they have bought it. They have experienced your brand, and they're a heavy category purchaser. That makes you a heavy swing purchaser. It doesn't mean that you often buy on deal, or you swing, or you buy multiple. Those are all misunderstandings in the minds of some people. Heavy swing purchasers simply have experienced your brand and are heavy category purchasers. Well, for this particular brand, the sales response is almost 4 times better. So this brand agreed they should be targeting, and they did target heavy swing purchasers, and their sales went up a lot. They had been targeting women 18 to 49, where even that was giving them an 18% improvement, unlike the previous set of cases I showed you. So you really have to look at your brand when you do this. You can't, take some stereotype of a previous finding. You have to do it for your brand. So here's a different kind of finding. These are findings for one brand, and it was a food brand. And what it found was the black bar is digital only. People reach just by digital. You can see those bars for sales uplift, shown on the left. It was modest, 1.6%. The green, people who saw only the TV ads, that was 10.6%. The blue, people who saw both TV and digital ads, it was 12.4%. Then the middle set of bars is how much of that increase came from an increase in penetration rather than the household buying more of the brand. Well, most of it came from increase in penetration. The digital alone, it caused a 2.6% increase in new buyers to the brand. TV alone got 7.7% increase in new buyers to the brand. And the combination got a 9.1% increase in new buyers to the brand. In terms of increasing old buyers and how much they buy, in this case, digital didn't get anything to speak of, almost invisible. TV alone got 3.5%, and combination TV and digital got 3.8%. And this pattern does not always show up exactly this way. You have to do this for your brand. So here's a different brand. And this brand shows that TV brings in new customers, and digital secures more sales from existing customers. You can see it's not the same pattern as we just saw for the other brand. So here, TV only, in terms of the sales uplift that TV only got was 32% was new to brand. Digital only 15% was new to brand. So different from the previous brand's experience. So all of this stuff is munged together through psychology that we're only beginning to understand. And every brand is in a different situation with a different communication platform, different positioning, different place in the minds of customers, different rationally and emotionally. It's quite a complicated thing in there. But big data can help you quickly extract sales increases before you even scientifically understand every part of the causality. Then optimal frequency level. We found a high degree of correlation across brands here, where weekly ad frequency for packaged goods of a 3 often comes out as the optimal in terms of ROI. That doesn't mean you don't continue to get more sales uplift as you get more frequency, but more frequency costs you more money. So from an ROI standpoint, every additional exposure is costing you more money. So even though the sales effect keeps going up, you reach a turning point where, as Facebook has also pointed out in its research, the ROI optimal is not the same as the sales optimal. higher involvement products like beauty brands, the optimal for ROI frequency goes up to like 4 or 5. And for many, the more pricey the brand and the more people are emotionally involved with the product category, the more frequency you need in general. And then again, creative. 65% of the sales effect of advertising comes from the creative. 35% comes from the media environment. So creative is very important to get a handle on. And initially, even before you understand what within the creative was causing the sales effect, which is something that is TRA working on, but some of my new patents are addressing the deconstruction of how creative works. You can at least benefit from knowing Creative 1 is selling our brand like hotcakes. Creative 3, not so much. You know, let's not run Creative 3. Let's just run Creatives 1 and 2, especially Creative 1. All of a sudden, the ROI goes up. Here we can see, this is almost the last slide. I'm going to make sure we have time for some questions. So the first bar is TV only. It got a sales lift. The second bar was 12% higher than the first bar. These were people exposed not only to the TV ads, but also to the temporary price reduction advertised in the store. Then the next blue bar is 5 points still higher. These are the people in the store who are exposed to the feature, the in-store flyer for the brand. And then at the bottom, the people who are exposed to all of that plus the special digital display, you can see a tremendous 40-point leap in the sales effect. So display in this case was enormously important. And you know, if you leave it out when you're doing any kind of a analysis of big data, you could get wrong decisions. Here's a different case showing here that trade promotion got a 55% increase in sales for this brand, and TV caused a further increment of another 11% among the people who were not only reached by the in-store promotion, but also by the TV. So these are factors not to leave out. Brand integration. The red bars here, or cylindrical columns, are the sales effects for these 5 brands just for their TV commercials, and the blue are their brand integrations. Much higher sales effect for the brand integrations than for the ads in all cases. Sometimes, though, integrations could be overpriced, and even though the sales go up, it doesn't always make the ROI go up. So you have to keep an eye on that. Thank you so much, and I can now address any questions. I see one question already. What does it cost to match all of the data together? You know, the matching cost is typically under $20,000, but if you're having to license some of the data, you know, whether it's from TRA or somebody else, that cost can be in the range of $25,000, $50,000. It could be up $90,000. It could be $150,000, and it can be even higher than that per brand. But it's generally in the range of $50,000 to $150,000 for doing many of these analyses. The general size, I think I have another question about cost. I think I've just answered it. How much does a brand have to spend in TV before the inclusion of TV as a necessity? We used to think it was $10 million a year, which was just a foot rule that we came up with. But we've now done work for brands spending only $2 million a year in TV and gotten amazing sales results for those brands. And one of those studies was published at the ARF already. Another one is going to be published at the ARF this June. And then what is the return on this big analytics investment? I think I mentioned it's typically more than 10 to 1. Typically we're seeing results in the millions of dollars. I'll give you kind of the worst case that we've seen so far. The worst case was an average 6% increase in sales. But this was on it was across 9 different brands with billions of dollars worth of sales. So 6% increase was an enormous amount of money, and was 50 to 100 times bigger than the cost of doing the analytics. Not seeing any other questions. I will turn it back to the meeting organizer to carry us to the conclusion then. Thank you again, everyone.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Bill. That was an excellent webinar, and we're delighted to have been hosting it today. I think it's most informative. I also just wanted to let everybody know a couple of items that we will be making a recording available of the webinar afterwards. We'll send you a link so you can share it with your colleagues. And also very pleased to advise that Bill's going to actually be presenting, so you can meet him in person in Chicago on the 14th of May. He's presenting at the Data Analytics Conference, which we're organising there. It's at the Congress Plaza Hotel. If you go to unicom.co.uk, you'll see some details about the event and Bill's presentation. So once again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And Bill, thank you for presenting.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I promise at the conference in May we'll be seeing completely different slides.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.